You could put half of Trump supporters into what I call the basket of deplorables. Right? The racist, sexist, homophobic, xenophobic, Islamophobic, you name it.
President Biden had a new attack on Republicans during a fundraiser last night. The president said, quote, "What we're seeing now is the beginning or the death knell of an extreme MAGA philosophy. It's not just Trump. It's the entire philosophy that underpins the," I'm going to say something, "it's like semi-fascism." That's a quote. In a campaign event before his fundraiser, Biden pointed his attack squarely on former President Trump.
In 2020, you and 81 million Americans voted to save our democracy. That's why Donald Trump isn't just a former president. He is a defeated former president.
I mean, that's such a ridiculous term. Are we? Haven't you succumbed to fascism, or you haven't? I mean, it's. I guess we're on the road to fascism. And what they mean by that, when elite people use that term, right? They're talking about threats to our election integrity kind of stuff, which, fair enough, Republicans have said a lot of really ridiculous things about election stuff and have tried, to make tweaks that would be bad. They've largely failed at that. And then they talk about, like misinformation is what's ruining our democracy. There's like too much speech on social media. It's too easy for people to make their own judgment about things that actually don't sound like fascism at all to me and are like the opposite of centralized government-based control over what you can say and think and do. We have less of that. It's harder to do that. And that's what a lot of those people who talk about fascism actually mean, that, there's too much. You might fall sway to something right-wing people think on social media, which is the opposite of fascism.
100%. And I think it's that, and also the best example of this was a Washington Post cartoon about the truckers' convoy in Canada. And it had, the cartoon was this. It was a series of trucks, and it said fascism on them, right? These working class truck drivers who were opposing a semi-fascistic vaccine mandate that they put something in their body. It doesn't matter that 90% of them were vaccinated. Doesn't matter that they sit alone in their trucks all day encountering nobody. This actually semi-fascistic mandate that they get vaccinated, they were engaged in this labor protest against that. And to the elites in the media, that is what looks like fascism to them, is standing up to their actual overreach, their actual authoritarianism. It's such an important point that you just made, Robbie.
We won't let people come from other countries, can't come into this country unless they get vaccinated. Djokovic can't come compete here because of that. Ridiculous. No public health rationale for it. Not a policy that should exist. Not one that was voted on by any legislative body. It's just a policy of our homeland security apparatus that makes no sense. But we're not supposed to call that fascist. It's not. I mean, it's, again, that would be hyperbole. It's just a very bad policy that should be changed. But the one-sided nature of these things. One more for our audiences. New York Governor Kathy Hochul taking a page out of Biden's new playbook. Let's watch this.
And we're here to say that the era of Trump and Zeldin and Molinaro, just jump on a bus and head down to Florida where you belong, okay? Get out of town. Get out of town. Because you don't represent our values. You are not New Yorkers.
And there was some rhetoric, I believe, from Charlie Crist recently, who's running for governor in Florida against DeSantis, saying that he doesn't want Republicans to vote for him. He wouldn't, not that they would, not that I think he's offering anything they would like, but yeah, he doesn't, it's that attitude. I don't want those voters, I don't want them, which is just, okay, good job, good luck running that campaign.
Yeah, I mean, it's just so sad, like their version of protecting democracy is eliminating the thing that makes a democracy, which is, tolerance for the viewpoints of others, right? And, I think at the end of the day, there are two components to like the MAGA movement, the sort of Trumpism with or without Trump. There is that piece about election denialism that makes me very uncomfortable, that, the sort of the January 6th stuff, right? That's there. We can't deny that that's there. But to me, the real force behind Trumpism, the real the thing that gave it that momentum, that gave it that vector, that the thing that it truly represents, that Trump truly represents, is the forgotten working class who saw him as a tribune, the people that the elites of both parties abandoned for so long, whose communities they destroyed, who saw in him and who see in this movement their economic agenda. It is, Trump's economic agenda was extremely populist in nature, extremely protectionist. We talk about this all the time. All the stuff you hate, Robbie, it was extremely close to everything Bernie Sanders ran on in 2015 and 2016. And that is the piece that I think is really threatening to the left, because these are the people that the left used to represent that they have abandoned. And so they have to cast this as fascism or as racism, which they do all the time, to hide the class divide that they have benefited from in the way that they have abandoned Trump's voters.
Secondly, the president also said he respects conservative Republicans, but he does not respect MAGA Republicans. More than 70 million Americans voted for Trump in 2020. Does he not respect those voters?
No, I mean, that's not what he said. I think he was pretty clear, and he was very powerful last night. Look, what the president said last night was that when it comes to MAGA Republicans, when it comes to the extreme, ultra wing of Republicans, they are attacking democracy, right? They are taking away rights and freedoms. They are using threats of violence. They are taking away voting rights, and he called it what it is. That's what he did. He called it what it is, and what many, we would argue, historians would agree with us on. And so, what Joe Biden believes is, as president, he should, and president should, be the strongest voice for democracy. And so he was making that very clear. He was making that contrast to what congressional Democrats have been doing, which is fighting for our rights, fighting for freedom, delivering on an economy that is historic, 10 million jobs that have been created, lowering health care, lowering prescription drugs, and making sure that we take on those special interest groups. And we saw just a couple weeks ago that we won. So he's making that contrast, trying to make that very clear of what we are seeing today. And so he was passionate about this. He was eloquent about this. And he also, when it comes to what you're asking me about Republicans who are conservative, clearly he said that he believed there are traditional conservative Republicans. He was very clear on that. He specifically called out and mentioned Maryland Governor Larry Hogan as one of them. So, but we have to really, make sure that we make it clear that there's a choice in front of the American people, right? And we have to make sure that we make it loud and clear that when it comes to MAGA Republicans, we call that out, and that's what he did, and what they're doing, right? What they're doing in attacking our democracy. And so he wanted to be clear on that, and he made that contrast, and that's what you heard from the president.